Alright, Akim Shabbat Shalom. All praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Bashim Yahushai, Bashim Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone for teaching us his truth. Salutations to the sincere Akim and Aquat and listen. May the blessing of election be upon your house. My name is Brother Aquai, and back in here with another quick and always was always an edifying lesson. And for today's lesson, I just wanted to go through this quick precept in regards to training up a child. Right. So, currently, today is, so-called Halloween, and, a lot of our people, they engage in these abominable practices, right? And what is this so-called holiday, or if you can call it that, is essentially, it promotes a lifestyle of death and actually promotes a culture that is very, very uncultivated. And this is not something that the Heavenly Father wants us to, essentially engage in, right? So, because it's filled with a lot of, how do you call these things? Symbols of death, cemeteries, graveyards, skeletons, so on and so forth. So I kind of wanted to tie that in because around this time of year, you normally hear a lot about strange, nefarious activities, such as, children going missing. There's been cases and situations where, people go out to take their children, to trick or treat, sort of, and then when they do that, there's been cases where they've actually found even sharp objects like needles or razor blades in the candy, so on and so forth, right? That's a warning, like, you people, you Israelites shouldn't be worshiping these different things, right? The scriptures say that don't learn the ways of the heathen. As a matter of fact, I'll get that first. Just give me 1 second. Okay, so moving forward, it says Jeremiah 10 verse, I'll start at verse 1, and it says, Hear ye the word of the Lord Yahweh, Bashim Yahushai, speaketh unto you, O house of Israel. Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, learn not the ways of the heathen, and be not dismayed at the signs of heaven, for the heathen are dismayed at them. Verse 3, here's the point. For the customs of the people are vain. For one cutteth a tree out of the forest, the work of the hands of a workman with an axe, right? So our people, one of the things we didn't want to do is to engage in these different practices, right? And this is what happens because, when our people move here, they might move here from their respective islands, so on and so forth, different parts of the world. They come to America, and essentially they start to partake in those different customs that are currently going on. You Israelites, probably would have children, and you send your children to these, essentially these indoctrination camps. Essentially, that's what they are. And and then every year religiously they engage in these different activities. Halloween is one of them. Promotes death. You see people dressing up and so on and so forth. You see things that are very, very grotesque, very detestable. Chopped off limbs and hanging out of people's cars. I was driving the other day and I saw this guy, and he had a full skeleton in his in the passenger seat, right? So this is the kind of vibration that this place emanates. It promotes death, right? And that's what Esau symbolizes. He symbolizes death, right? He's that red horse, right? And death just essentially just follows him, right? This is the vibration that he emanates, right? He's not promoting actual life, right? So let me actually go to the precept that I kindly borrowed this the title for this lesson for. This is Proverbs 22:6, and it says, Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. Right? So that's really the important. That can also be applied to us as well, coming into this understanding, because we feast on the milk, right? And then, we grow up and essentially we be able to take on more solid foods and more meat heavier topics, right? But even in a plain sense as well, raising up your children to actually properly actually to understand who they are, according to the Bible, understanding their power in the Most High, His Son, and understanding their heritage, right? Because we discontinued from a heritage, right? But when our people move to countries like Babylon the Great and its affiliates, they take on these different practices, and these practices are so detestable, where they cause you to transgress against the Heavenly Father, right? Right? Because as a matter of fact, let me get it. It's one of the precepts I have here. This is Jeremiah 2, verse 21, and it says, "Yet I have planted thee a noble vine, a holy, a right seed. How then art thou turned into the degenerate plant of a strange vine unto me?" Right? So what makes us degenerate is following these different abominable ways of following these different customs. We're not supposed to follow these customs because we're a holy people, pursuing the Deuteronomy 7. We are a holy people above these other nations. So if we're above these other nations, we're not supposed to partake in their lewd customs, their filthy customs. These things actually, essentially, when you think about it, these things actually dim your vibration and keep your power separated from you. The Lord's hiding His face from us. Because when we engage in these things, the Lord is like, as a matter of fact, that's in Isaiah somewhere. Hold on. To engage in these different things, Isaiah 59. Okay, Isaiah 59, verse 1, and it says, "Behold, the Lord Yahweh's hand is not shortened that it cannot save, neither his ear heavy that it cannot hear. But your iniquities," so your transgressions, heaping sin upon sin upon sin, "have separated you, and your power and your sins have hid his face from you that he will not hear." Right? So, engaging in these different things, these things are detestable, right? You're not actually training up your children in the customs that they're brought up, right? So I just wanted to bring out another account because I was rereading the book of Tobit recently, and I thought it was very, very moving, and I kind of wanted to add that into the lesson also, because when you think about our family structures are so broken, right? You don't have most of, like, when you think about our nation, for example, our nation is very well known for having single mother households, right? So, and what I love about this chapter, because essentially Tobit is giving his son, proper counsel of how to actually direct and actually govern himself and govern, his life, right? And keep essentially wisdom, keeping these precepts, statutes, and laws in the back of his mind, right? Right. That's also likened unto training up a child, right? So let me just get it real quick. I'm just flipping through it. Just bear with me on this. Let's see here. Okay, so this is Tobit chapter 4, I'll start at verse 1 and just read down, and it's, interject here and there. Okay, so it says, "In that day Tobit remembered the money which he had committed to Gabriel in Regis in Media. And he said unto himself, I wished for death, wherefore do I not call for my son Tobias, that I may signify to him of the money before I die? And when he had called him, he said, When am I dead? Bury me." Oh, excuse me, sorry. It says, "My son, when I am dead, bury me. Despise not thy mother, but honor her all the days of thy life, and do that which shall please her, and grieve her not." Right? So the scriptures talk about honoring, your father and your mother, right? As a matter of fact, that's in Ecclesiasticus, somewhere. Hold on, let's see if I could find that quickly. So he's giving, instructions on how to actually, promote righteousness. Hold on. Let me just find a quick precept on that. bear with me. Hold on. Okay, so this is Sirach chapter 3, verse 11. And it says, "For the glory of a man is from the honor of his father, and a mother in dishonor is a reproach to the children. My son, help thy father in his age, and grieve him not as long as he liveth. If his understanding fail, have patience with him, and despise him not when thou art thy full strength." Right? So your parents get to essentially a certain age. You don't despise them, because they're not able to essentially, they may not have the physical or even the mental strength as well to be able to perform and do certain things, right? So essentially what Tobit's doing, Tobit's kind of giving his son, game. Like how people in the world might say, to get that girl, I want to put you on some game. Like Tobit is giving his son Tobias, some game, how to, essentially, look pleasing in the eyes of the Heavenly Father through his son, right? Um, I'll just jump to first, excuse me, I'll just jump to verse 16, and it says, he says, "He that forsaketh his father is a blasphemer, and he that angereth his mother is cursed of the Most High." Right? So, it just goes into showing the kind of mindset to actually, caring for and having having, what's it called? Not essentially a relationship, but actually having a reverence for your parents. That's another problem that a lot of our people have, in society today. They don't have, a strong reverence. Well, they have more of a reverence for their mothers rather than reverence for their fathers, right? They don't actually, maintain. They have a lot. They don't have a lot to say when it comes to good things. A lot of good things to say about their own fathers, right? There used to be a joke. I remember being in school. When I was like when I first moved here. It was like, these heathens always used to tell this joke, like, what's the difference between a bench and a black guy? And then the answer was the bench could support a family, right? So, it goes to show that, among the other nations were a joke, right? So this, is what, so going back to the topic of the lesson, Tobit is giving his son, some spiritual game on how to actually look pleasing in the eyes of the Lord, right? So, continuing on, it says, verse 4, Tobit chapter 4, verse 4, and it says, "Remember, my son, that she saw many dangers for thee when thou wast in her womb, and when she is dead, bury her by me in one grave. My son, be mindful of the Lord Yahweh, Bashem Shai, our power, all thy days, and let not thy will be set to sin." And what is sin? Sin is transgression of the law. And a lot of our children growing up, they don't know these things. They might learn about Michael Jordan. They might know, they can name all the Kardashian sisters. They can even probably name all the different types of Jordans, all the different types of shoes, right? They could probably name, for you, how to, they could probably even teach you, for example, how to smoke, how to smoke, I don't know, how to roll papers, how to roll a spliff. This is the kind of information that, a lot of our children know, growing up in this society. They don't actually learn how to actually conduct themselves in righteousness. They can't tell you, they don't know what the Dark Ages is. They don't know nothing about history. Like, even a fun fact I learned recently was, for example, King James, when he was 14, he knew Greek, French, and Latin at the age of 14 years old. Right? When you think about it, like, how many of our children grow up today learning these kinds of things? They don't learn a lot of these things, right? Unless they probably go to, like, maybe a private school, but still at the same time, Tobit's still giving his son game in regards to how to please the Lord as well. Keeping these things in mind, right? Because a lot of our children, they might inherit some sort of money from maybe their parents if their parents are a bit more well off, right? But they don't actually have a strong spiritual moral compass, when it comes to, okay, after their parents die, how to conduct themselves as an Israelite man or an Israelite woman, right? They don't actually have that, drilled into them at a young age. And that's kind of what Tobit is giving his son in this chapter here, right? I'm just going to read a little bit more, and it says, okay, I'll read verse 5. I'll read verse 5, and it says again, and it says, my son, be mindful of the Lord, our power, all thy days, and let not thy will be set to sin, and transgress his commandments. Right? So essentially learning about the commandments, things to do and things not to do, things to eat and things not to eat, so on and so forth. It says, hold on, just bear with me. It says, do uprightly all thy life long, and follow not the ways of unrighteousness. Right? Yeah. So don't follow these different customs that you see that he's being engaged in. Don't follow these different ways. Like, that's what wisdom is. It's giving you instructions on how actually to conduct yourself. Right? That's what Tobit's giving his son here. So it says, continuing on. Verse 6, and it says, for if thou deal truly, thy doings shall prosperously succeed to thee, and to all them that live justly. Verse 7, give alms of thy substance, and when thou givest alms, excuse me, let not thy eye be envious, neither turn thy face from any poor, and the face of the Most High shall not be turned away from thee. Right? So he's giving you, some understanding, like, okay, if you, you have some, you even if you have a little bit of money, you could, help out your, you can use it to help out your kinsmen, right? Giving you an understanding also that you can still use the money to accumulate the physical money, so to speak, to accumulate treasures in heaven, right? Laying up those treasures in heaven, right? So the Lord remembers you, especially in times of trouble, right? The scriptures say that riches profit not in a day of wrath, but righteousness can deliver from death, right? As a matter of fact, I'm going to get that. Hold on. Okay, so Proverbs 11:4, and it says, riches profit not in a day of wrath, but righteousness delivered from death, right? So, that's really the point. Oh, hold on. Let me just read verse 6. I didn't see that there. It says, the righteousness of the upright shall deliver them, but transgressors will be taken in their own haughtiness. So essentially, if you bear what's it called, spiritual good fruits, pleasing fruit, so to speak, good fruit, all those will be kept and then remembered, right? But if you're reaping essentially bad fruits, adultery, you're scheming, or if different types of behaviors, right? Adultery and all these kinds of stuff. If you're reaping those kinds of things, then you're going to sow those things. Right? That's why in the spirit, that's why a lot of these rappers, essentially be dying and get taken out, because when they speak, the kinds of music they do engage in, for example, they talk about adultery, and boasting about it on a track, having what's it called? Very little reverence for their own kin, deleting their own kin on the playground or on the sidewalk or in their neighborhoods. That's the kind of lifestyle that they breed, and that's the kind of they're reaping what they sow. Essentially, that's what I'm trying to get at. Right? That's the vibration that is coming back to them. That's why a lot of them be dropping dead these days. Right? Even over the past few years, there's so many little this and little that have been come and they've gone like fruit flies. They're just dropping dead like fruit flies. right? You know, but Tobit here is training up, his son in regards to, giving his son proper instructions, right? That's going to promote life, that the Lord's going to have mercy upon him, right? Especially when he's going through times of trouble, right? Because those things are recorded in heaven, right? Those spiritual, those spiritual fruits, so to speak, right? So, um, let me just read a little bit more here, and I guess I'll just close it off. It says, verse 8, and it says, "If thou hast substance, give alms accordingly, and if thou have but a little, be not afraid to give according to that little. For thou layest up a good treasure for thyself against the day of necessity," right? And that's true, and even for us as well, you can even apply this, because in Jacob's trouble, we're gonna need, in that time, we're gonna need, what's it called, necessities, right? Because being stripped off and cut off from this society, because they're gonna push forth their wicked agendas, their NWO agenda, in those times, we're gonna need essentially, those good fruits that we were kind of cultivating in this time of grace, right? Let's see, verse 9, and it says, "For thou layest up." Okay, I'll read verse 9 again. It says, "For thou layest up a good treasure for thyself against the day of necessity, both that, excuse me, verse 10, "because that alms do deliver from death, and suffer not to come in darkness." Right? "For alms is a good gift unto all that give it, and in the sight of the most, and all that give it in the sight of the Most High," right? So it's a pleasing sight in the Lord, Yahweh Bashem Shai, when you do these things, right? So that's part of that good counsel, those instructions that, Tobit is giving his son, Tobias, right? As a matter of fact, I guess because we're on the topic of alms, let me just get this last precept here. Let's see. This is 1 Corinthians 13, verse 1, and it says, "Though I speak with the tongues of men and of angels and have not charity, I have become as a sounding brass and a tinkling cymbal. For though I have the gift of prophecy and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and though I have all faith that I can remove mountains, and have not charity, I am nothing." Right? So, just showing you the the mindset the Apostle Paul had. I could have all these different things. If I don't have charity, I have nothing, right? And charity doesn't have to include and be limited to money, right? Yes, it can be money, but at the same time, it could also be, giving brothers your time, a phone call, for example, it could be, for example, I don't know, I'm just using, okay, if you have, family that are pleased to dwell with you and they need help with something, you help them, so on and so forth, right? All these things can, be remembered in the sight of the Most High, right? Like, remember the story, one of the stories was, what's this guy's name? Nabal, right? Abigail's first husband, he had the opportunity to do good to the godly man and he didn't take it, right? So it shows you the difference, right? He had all that substance, but, he didn't take the opportunity to actually do good to David when David was in a time of need, right? So, anyways, that's really the point. Not trying to go too off topic. It, not trying to make it into an alms type of lesson, but all these different things, can, is how, part. This is also spiritual. What's it called? Spiritual fruits. Good things that our children should know how to do, because our children don't learn a lot of these things. But starting first and foremost, like with the law, statutes, and commandments, of course, right? But learning, this promotes good behavior, right? Children that are well instructed, and children, that's our children are not seen as essentially well mannered or well behaved. They're seen as complete degenerates, when they go out on the streets, especially in Babylon, right? Because they've taken on a lot of these ways of the heathen, right? So, anyways, I guess I'll leave it off there, but excuse me. But hopefully this was edifying. So I give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. Till next time, I say Shalom.